This is the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom show, the wake-up call on WCOM LP, Chapel Hill and Carrboro, 103.5 on your FM dial, or live streaming at WCOMFM.org. You can also watch the show on the People's Channel after a week's delay on Thursday night at 10 p.m., Friday morning at 6 a.m., or Tuesday at noon. The show will also be available on our YouTube channel, Wolf Wake Up Call. I'm Mira Schwintzer here with our host, Lori Hoyt, Emily O'Hare on the camera, and today our special guest is Rebecca Cerese.
Thank you, Iris. Hey, Rebecca. We're so glad to be here again on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon in downtown Carrboro. We're here every Wednesday, and as Iris just told you, there's other ways to catch us. So we'll announce that again, because we don't want you to miss our wonderful guests who we have a guest each week, and we always have somebody who's doing something to make the community, the state, the nation better. And we let them tell you what they're doing and how you can also get involved. So today we have one of our favorite people, Rebecca Cerese, on, who's with the Progressive Democrats. We're going to talk about that. This is the season.
It really is.
And a lot's going on and a lot of misinformation. So we're going to find out some on-the-spot, real information about Progressive Democrats and what they're hoping to do and accomplish. Hey, Rebecca.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on again. I always love this.
We do too. See your bright face and the work that you're doing and the passion that you have for it. That's always an inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right back at you.
Yeah.
The Wolf women always inspire me.
Well, that good. That's inspiration is a thing that catches. I think when you're around people with that kind of good energy, you take some of that into yourself, and it helps you move forward.
Absolutely, because as we know, social change is not something that happens overnight, and we need that inspiration to sustain us, because it's very easy to give in to despair. But as my favorite presidential candidate says, now is not the time for despair, now is the time for action. And I'll leave it up to you to figure out who that is.
So we'll start off with, I think most of our listeners may have some idea, but maybe not, about the Progressive Democratic Movement. How long has it been going on? You're real involved. And what are the values? What are the Progressive Dems trying to do?
So for the longest time, the Democratic Party as a whole has really shifted to be more of an establishment party or a corporate party, unfortunately. The party that used to be the party of FDR, right? The New Deal, like uplifting the common person, has in the last 30 years or so really shifted to be more a professional class party. Really looking out for corporate interests while saying they're looking out for the regular person. But that's really not the policies that they've been pushing. I'll just give you one example. The House has put forward a lot of bills that, of course, have sat in the Senate, but one thing they have not pushed forward, for example, is Medicare for All, despite the fact that that bill has 122 co-sponsors. They can bring it to the floor of the House at any time for a vote, for a debate, and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, refuses to do that.
122 co-sponsors?
Yes, 122 co-sponsors. Yeah.
If you will talk about that, well,
yes, absolutely. So healthcare is really my passion issue. I'm the co-lead of a group called Healthcare for All Y'all, and I go around the state talking to people about why we need to transform our very cruel and immoral system that we currently have in healthcare that's profit-based to what we call an improved Medicare for All system, which is just a single-payer system that really cuts out all the administrative waste, takes the profit out of it, because things that are for the public good should not really have profit in the center or as the main goal. I mean, we have a healthcare system now that the main goal is to make money for shareholders, and that should not be the focus of healthcare. It should be giving people care. And we are the only developed country that does not give healthcare to our people as a right. and we are spending more than about double what most other countries are spending per capita, and we have worse health outcomes. We have one of the worst maternal death rates in the developed world, infant mortality rates the same, and kind of really shocking, our life expectancy has actually declined 3 years in a row. And that's for several reasons. One is suicide, the opioid crisis, and also just diseases of despair and poverty. And people are also dying from treatable illnesses because they can't afford to go to the doctor, which ties it back into why we desperately need a more humane, moral system, healthcare system that covers everyone. We also have 87 million people that are either uninsured or underinsured, which means that they have insurance but they can't use it because they can't pay the deductible or any of the really high out-of-pocket costs. And for my job at the North Carolina Justice Center, which is nonpartisan, but we're pushing for Medicaid expansion around North Carolina. And my job is to go around and talk to people and collect the stories and amplify the stories of people who don't have health insurance. And I can't explain to you how heartbreaking it is, how many times I've ended up in tears talking to folks as they've, shared their pain with me of what they've had to deal with. And in the richest country in the world, nobody should have to deal with that. End up suffering because they can't go to the doctor at the front end of an illness because they can't afford it.
And all of those statistics are so heartbreaking. And another one is that most of the bankruptcies in this country are from people who can't pay their medical bills. And it's shocking that when you see some of these GoFundMe sites and hear about that, where there's some illnesses I've seen some particularly for some child with cancer, and for a parent who's struggling with such a seriously ill child, and to have to go begging for the money for their medical bills, that is just so unconscionable. And then when they get some money, people, they're so happy, and they have people so happy for them, and they have an article in the paper, and they never quite say that in the paper, isn't this the tragedy that this family is suffering and struggling to help this child survive, and they've got to go begging for money for their
not
medical
able
bills.
to just focus on making sure their child gets better, but then having this added stress of how are we going to finance it. 1 out of 3 GoFundMe pages are for medical bills. We have turned into the GoFundMe system. Again, the richest country in the world. We forget that sometimes because 43% of our country cannot afford a $400 emergency. People are suffering all over the place. Many people are 1 paycheck away from destitution, from bankruptcy, from being homeless, which is, I can tie that in with the Progressive Democrats. So this is why Progressive Democrats are a group of Democrats that basically believe that certain public goods should be a human right. It's FDR's economic bill of rights, that people should have shelter, food, health care, a job if they want it. And we should treat everyone equally. We should not have a racist criminal justice system. We should not have a racist, xenophobic, cruel immigration system. There's so many things that really, it's all about uplifting people and not corporations and not the mega rich. So government for the people, by the people, which unfortunately it seems like the Democratic Party has really stepped away from as they've embraced this more sort of corporate, bent. And that's where the Progressive Democrats are really about. We want to pull the party left or back to where they came from. At their most popular, FDR was elected 4 times. They had to literally make a law that you couldn't run more than twice because he was really he was uplifting regular people, especially after the Depression. But we want to even go further than that because there was an issue with race and gender in the New Deal. So we want a more equitable New Deal that really looks at things through a race and gender lens and is not just about equality, but is about equity and, gives the folks that need it the most a little extra help to get to where they need to be as well.
Yeah, well, and the New Deal was very forward-thinking for its time. And that was in the 30s. And now we are in 2020. And yes, this is bringing it up to today's lens of how we look at things. And I think for the 30s, it was a very far-seeing, it was wonderful. On race, it was not wonderful.
Right.
And in terms of gender, but it did so many good things.
Yes.
And so many of us still depend on Social Security. You know, there was so much that was put out, and since for the last, I'd say, 30 or 40 years, there's been a chipping away, and there's a group of people who never accepted the New Deal.
Right.
And they have spent their lifetime, these old guys, still trying to get rid of those forward-thinking things, let alone updating them for today's needs.
Right. They want to privatize everything.
Privatize everything, all public space.
Yes. And it's just, and they've unfortunately been incredibly successful, and they've done it in a very underhanded way. So
Very smart the way they word things in a very deceptive manner.
Yep.
So that they'll make stealing from your grandmother sound like a positive thing for her welfare. You know that she doesn't need all of that.
Yeah.
They twist everything and have been very smart at fooling people.
And they pit us against each other. So instead of saying like we should all have something, people are like, well, they have something over there and they're taking it away from you.
Yes.
Right. You don't have a job, a good paying job, because of this undocumented immigrant or whatever, other they're going to demonize. And it's demagoguery. It's a tale as old as time, and unfortunately it's incredibly successful.
And they know that.
Because it builds on fear and insecurity, which are very powerful in the human psyche.
Yes.
But we have to really turn that on its head and be like, they're not the ones taking anything away. The powerless people that are the others are not the people that are taking anything away from you. They're in the same boat as you. We have more in common than we have that divide us. And we all just want to have a decent life. And we all want to be able to take care of our families. And we all want to have a house and be able to put food on the table and have decent health. I mean, at the core, really, that's what everyone really wants across the board. And if we can understand that and really choose a different path.
And get our message out.
Yeah.
So that we can get the message to help people take a look at what is being deceptive. And yes, and that, it's in the Constitution that the government is there to provide for the general welfare.
Yes.
And somehow this country has so twisted things around, they've made welfare a dirty word. The
Yes.
general welfare, the well-being of all of its citizens. And that somehow has gotten lost in its, the progressive Dems and others are desperately or strongly trying to bring back that understanding.
Yeah, especially I can speak from, and this is me speaking as an individual, the Bernie Sanders campaign. I mean, their slogan is "Not me, us." It's this idea of that we're all in this together, true solidarity, not unity, which is this sort of weird thing, which can be like, you have to come to my side, and but solidarity is standing with each other where people are at, and it's very powerful. And this idea of we can uplift all of us, and that actually is a good thing for everybody involved. We can choose a different path instead of going down the path of hate, divisiveness, endless war, money, corruption. We can actually join together against those forces that are trying to stay in power with everything they have,
With everything.
and will continue to. But we have the people power, and we can really stand up. One of the things that I love that Bernie says is, are you willing to fight for someone you don't know? And that's really the core of it, isn't it? And the not me, us, which isn't just a slogan. It's literally the political philosophy that the movement is built on, that it's so much more than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, will be, the leader, hopefully, that will sort of bring us into this new progressive era. But it's going to take all of us, because we know that we are up against powerful special interests who want to see us fail at every level. And sadly, not just corporate interests and not just the Republicans, but the establishment Democrats as well, that have proven over and over again that they would I think they would rather have like a Trump than a progressive in office. And I hate to say that because I am a Democrat now, but nationally at least, this is what it seems to me, if I'm speaking honestly. And just from what I've seen myself, I mean, I went to the National Convention in 2016 to protest because I felt that the thing that people don't remember, and I don't really want to look back, was that neither Clinton nor Sanders had the number of delegates needed, and I was hoping that the superdelegates would do the right thing, although I'm against superdelegates, and I think that it should be one person, one vote. But since that was the process, you know, I was hoping that they would, you know, really change their mind. And I'm not kidding. The Democratic Party treated progressives so badly at that convention that it really, I mean, I was devastated for months after that because I was like, here's this party that I finally did join because for the longest time I was an independent. But I was like, you know, I'm going to throw in with the Democrats and really try and do this. And I felt completely unwelcome, my perspective. And what's so horrible about wanting people to have a good life, you know, wanting to come back to policy that is going to actually uplift us, that's going to invest in our country, improve our country across the board, you know, build something that's bigger than all of us, that we can all be part of. I mean, our country has, you know, suffers from this mythology of rugged individualism, right? Which I hate, and I also think it's BS. No one is a self-made person. Everybody has had help one way or the other. And we have to get to a place where we understand that it's all of us together. And when we join together, we're so much stronger.
Yeah, and that thing about the rugged individual, I mean, even those who, with their businesses, start doing well, I mean, they're dependent on educated people. So that's our education system. They're dependent on roads and airports, all these public services, on water, which they have misused too often, or so very often. So they're not doing it by themselves. They are dependent on a lot of work that's been done by a lot of people to make it possible, and they just don't want to acknowledge that in terms of paying fair taxes. And every time I try to not be so angry, then you see, what was it, the 10 major corporations that we all know their names, not paying any taxes. I mean, that's enraging.
Yep, including Amazon.
And Amazon and all of them. And you're thinking, how can that be in this country?
Yep.
What rationale can the tax system have that the richest 10 corporations are not paying any taxes, and some poor little person who's making 30, 40, 50,000, those are the ones the IRS goes after. And I read that they don't want to go after the big ones. It's going to be too much litigation.
Right.
So let's go after the hanging fruit, the little guy who can't afford a good lawyer.
Yeah, we need a complete overhaul of our tax system.
And when you read that in black and white,
I know.
You know.
Yeah. We need progressive taxation so that it's a fair taxing system. And of course we need to close all those loopholes. And we also need to have corporations and the richest people pay their fair share. The thing is, unfortunately, the Republicans have been really effective about messaging around taxes. And so taxes are this like ugly word. This is like one of my pet peeves. Like, it drives me crazy. Taxes are what we pay to live in a civilized society. It's what we pay to invest in public goods. But the reason why people are just sick of it is because we're getting a really bad return on our investment right now. We're not seeing like the fruits of these investments, you know, in education or infrastructure or healthcare or any of those things, because all of our money is going to endless war, subsidies for giant profitable corporations, and tax cuts for the rich. So of course people are pissed off about paying taxes. I have no problem paying taxes. If we had a universal healthcare system, a single payer system, if we had free public colleges, universities, and trade schools and community colleges, if we had a giant infrastructure bill, you know, if we were tackling climate change with the Green New Deal, like I would be like all excited about paying more taxes because first of all, you're getting more. You're getting a bigger bang for your buck, right? But I understand why people are pissed right now about taxes. But we have to keep our eye on the prize. Taxes themselves are not the enemy. In fact, they're how we can pool our resources to create a better world. But we just need the political will to force the people we elect, even the people on our side, even the people that we might like, to do the right thing. Because even the people that we like who are on our side are not, some of them are, but most of them are not fighting strong enough against what is happening, in our system right now with separation of powers. It's just dissolved, I mean, it's like the executive branch is like a monarchy, a dictator, and that's, what Trump wants. He, I think, imagines himself as a dictator, wants that.
And he's shown it.
Shown it over and over.
That is so. That is what's so weird to me. He's very upfront about really loving dictators,
right,
and fighting with all the democratic other countries, and the only dictatorship that he's not is taken to his bosom is China, because that's so big, I guess. He wants to be the biggest, but all these little tin pot dictators all over the world, he's inviting over, giving them blessings. Yep. And it is, it's like if you were a black comic writing about this, how would you write about it? Because it's already so weird.
It's very, very strange. But the thing I think that we have to remember is it's not just about Trump. Trump is a symptom of a bigger problem. What were the conditions that led to a Trump? And they were very real conditions. They were people suffering, like I had mentioned earlier, all over. People not able to take care of their families. People having to work 2-3 jobs and still not able to pay all their bills. Having to choose between medicine and putting food on the table. Worrying, oh my gosh, what if I get sick? What's going to happen? I can't afford those bills. I don't have insurance, or I have a huge, deductible. People's standard of living has not gone up. It's actually gone down. And there's real economic pain out there. And when people are suffering from economic pain, they're more open to the demagoguery. They're more open to, the racist dog whistles and the otherisms and making blaming others for it. But it really stems from economic pain, and there's just racism too. I mean, there's systemic racism throughout our entire country. It's what we're founded on. Sadly, it's at the core of who we are. I mean, we were built. The country was built on the backs of African slaves, and we took the land from the Native Americans, who we murdered. And we have to come to terms with all of that in order to move forward. We have to finally wrestle with the race question and really go attack it in a real way. We have to attack the white supremacist systems that are just constantly perpetuated. And really, as white people, that is a big part of our work. We have to work on that because we're the ones that are benefiting from it, and we're the ones that are helping perpetuate it. Even if we don't, even unconsciously, because it's so prevalent. It's in everything that we do. So all of these things led to Trump, but Trump was really a symptom. And so I think this is why the Bernie campaign is really, it caught on the last time. We have to remember he closed a huge gap. He was an unknown, senator from Vermont, one of the smallest states in the country. And he took off. He closed that gap because he was speaking to the real pain of people, and he was putting forth a positive, hopeful vision. It always cracks me up. He's like this curmudgeon, but he is really putting forth this beautiful, hopeful, progressive, unifying vision of what we can be, of the greatness that America can be based on what our ideals are that we've never lived up to.
Well, I think it's getting close to time for a station break. We'll take a station break and make some announcements and come back to talking about a vision for our country different than the vision that is being offered by our president.
This is Will's Wake Up Call on WCOMLP, Chapel Hill and Carver, 103.5 FM. You can stream us live at WCOMFM.org.
Thank you, Iris. One announcement I have is from Lauren Butler, who's a spoken word poet. And she worked with Jackie Shelton Green when she had a big program with poetry and music a few months back. And she also was recently at our Church for Martin Luther King program on that Sunday, and was one of the highlights. And she's going to be having an open mic event, spoken word out loud open mic event at Chapel View Clubhouse, which is 2701 Homestead Road in Chapel Hill. And that's right inside the leasing office. The program is going to be February 7th. And it's going to be a reception at 7 o'clock, and the program starts at 7:30. And it's cash at the door, $10 and $5 if you have a student ID. So it's going to be poetry of the heart, spiritual profoundness, and so the co-hosts will be Lauren Butler and Jelano Bell. And I think it's going to be really good, and I told her we would let people know about, we'd like to promote poetry when we can, especially really good poetry. And spoken word is one of my favorite forms of poetry. Okay, and I just was going to mention that some upcoming programs next week. We're going to have Fran Schwindler on, who is just back from going to the border and helping out there, and she has a lot of stories about what it's like at our border with Mexico. She's been there twice and is getting ready to go back for a third time. So I'm so thrilled that we could grab her to come on the show before she goes back to the border. And then the following week we're going to have, on the 12th, Donna Jones, who's with the NAACP, and she's also on campus, works there, but with some black protest group, and I'll find out more about that. So I just wanted to let you know we have a couple of really good shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I think our guest is Rebecca Cerese with the Progressive Democrats. And we've been talking about a better vision for our country, but before we do that, I think she has an announcement.
Yes, I also want to give a plug for both Fran and Donna. They're both amazing women. And I know Fran better because I've been to DC protests with her many, many, many times, and she is incredible. She's a character.
Yeah. She really is. She's been arrested, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Oh yeah, well, more than that.
Probably more than that.
Just those, probably 3 or 4 times just with me. And she's been there much more than I have. So yeah, I have 2 quick announcements. The Progressive Democrats of Orange County, we held last month a candidate palooza, and we're doing our second one on February 13th at 6:30 at the Orange County Democratic Headquarters in Carrboro off Lloyd Street. It's 209 Lloyd Street, so February 13th. So we're going to have a lot of local candidates, judge candidates, some surrogates for some of the national presidential candidates. Come and talk to us. It was really informative the last time. So come on out for that. We also live streamed it on Facebook on the Progressive Democrats of Orange County page. So we plan on doing that again. Also, my other group, Healthcare for All Y'all, is partnering up with the Chapel Hill Carrboro NAACP, and I'm giving a presentation on how to create a fair and equitable, a just and equitable healthcare system, which is Improved Medicare for All, and that's going to be February 20th at 6:30 at the Chapel Hill Library. It's free and open to the public, and we'd love for you to come out. I give like a presentation, and then I do question and answer. Because there's a mass misinformation campaign out there trying to muddy the waters on Medicare for All, which the numbers are there. It's not just the moral choice, it's the better economic choice for all of us. But the special interests that are making a mint off of the suffering of others are not going to go quietly into the night. So the more information we know, the better informed we are, the better we can fight that. And also we can hold our politicians accountable, which is a really important piece that I think we forget. Voting is one thing, super important, amazingly important, but voting is really only the first step. And what we need to do after that is hold the people that we voted for accountable. We have a ridiculous incumbency rate in America where once someone is in there for a period of time, it's very difficult to vote them out. And in fact, the Democratic Party sadly does not really like when incumbents are challenged, despite the fact that they're called the Democratic Party. It's not very democratic, but especially if the incumbent is being challenged from the left. They are not very excited about that and really frown on it, actually. But we have to hold people accountable. They are there to represent us. And again, even if you like the person, I mean, I think David Price is a very nice person, but that doesn't mean that I am not going to challenge him every chance I get on some of the decisions that he has made that I don't agree with. For example, he's not come out as a big champion for Medicare for All. For example, he voted for the military budget, the NDAA budget, even after the amendments that were going to, strip money for war with Iran or keep him from being able to, stripping war for Yemen, like being able to end the war in Yemen, the Saudi-led war, which is creating a genocide. Those were all stripped out, and yet he voted for it anyway. When it overwhelmingly passed. And he really didn't have, I confronted him at the Canada-Palooza about it, actually asked him the question, and he really didn't have a good answer. So we have to get more comfortable with that and realize that a vibrant democracy only stays vibrant if you have active participation by a populace that's informed about the issues. So I know politics for a lot of people isn't sexy or fun, but the truth of the matter is every single thing is political. Every single thing. We have poverty because of policy decisions that are keeping people in poverty, which is political. And so we can change those things if we support people and then hold them accountable that actually reflect our values. And it has nothing to do with whether you like them or not. It really has to do with what kind of country do we want to be?
When somebody says to me, "Oh, like they're above it," I don't like politics, and I think, well, do you care about the air that you're breathing? Do you care about the water that you're drinking? Do you care about the education that your kids are getting? They act as though this is dirty stuff, or I'm just above it all,
Right.
and they just, and you just try to make a dent
Right.
that every single thing that affects our lives is political. And
Every single thing.
Every
It's all
single-
politics.
yeah.
And nobody can really afford to sit it out. I understand why they want to, like what we talked about
Yes.
before. It's because the money, that's the other thing.
They-
We have to get money out of politics.
Exactly.
But the moneyed interests are the ones that are calling all the shots. They're the ones writing the legislation. They're the ones, there was a poll, I think it was a Harvard study that showed, it was like a graph, and it was like 0% to 100%. So if it was 0% of people to 100% of people supporting something, it was a flat line of whether it was accomplished or not. For special interests, it was a straight line up. So the more special interests wanted something, the more likely it was to occur. But for us, the regular people, it was a flat line. For example, 90% of people want background checks, universal background checks for and gun safety legislation. Yet, we do not have that because the NRA owns so many GOP politicians. And sadly, outside the NRA, there's other special interests that own Democratic politicians as well. And we have something that we call legalized bribery in this country. Yes, it's legal, but that doesn't mean it's right. And it's not helping us.
And that's one of the things Bernie was in the forefront of, saying, I don't want to get this money from these corporations and stuff. Send me $5, $10, and he's done that because I think the money has so corrupted things.
Right.
And this whole thing with incumbents, yes, they do have some historical knowledge. You wouldn't want all new people in every first year of the Congress, the opening of the Congress. However, where they're dying they're in there for 20, 30, 40 years, it gets ridiculous. And you're right, there was different articles I've read where somebody who's more progressive is trying to challenge an incumbent, and the party does everything to shut them up and take
It's
any money
happening.
away.
It's happening in our Senate race here. I mean, the Democrats as a whole. I mean, I'm the president of the Progressive Democrats. Endorsing a candidate is not encouraged as like party. Like for the progressives to endorse someone, say that's not encouraged. Yet the Democratic Senatorial Committee has thrown in behind Cal Cunningham, even though we have 5 people running for the Democratic to be on the Democratic ticket for our, to take on Tom Tillis. Why is that? Why were they able to choose, one person over the other people that are running that are qualified, are good people? It's like, why can't the people just decide? Because what happens is Cal Cunningham gets the money.
They're funneling within
And then the other people who
today.
don't, right, and then the other people don't have that same kind of funding. And for Senate races, unfortunately, we're talking a lot of money. You need a lot of money for a Senate race, unfortunately. And it's hard to raise that type of money from small dollar donations, especially if you don't have a household name. And so it totally stacks the deck, and it's really not fair. So I mean, it's going on right here.
We don't have to go too far afield.
No, we do not. We do not.
Yeah. So Bernie has been, he did so well, and I think it just really blew their minds in 16, and they were so angry about that. And now they're doing everything to put up obstacles for him. And the media kind of cooperates with that.
Oh, 100%. Because the media, first of all, the people in the, especially cable news media, are millionaires. They get paid millions of dollars. So, he's coming for their taxes. He's coming for their greed. Also, cable news, but actually all the news, the mainstream media news, are owned by corporations, and they know that Bernie is going to change everything. And they don't want that. They want the status quo with a little less Trump. That's really what they want. They don't want the crassness and the overt corruption that is Trump. And he's a horror show. I mean, he's one of the worst human beings that's ever existed on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. He should have been removed immediately for emoluments, for enriching himself, for being corrupt to the core. So I hate Trump. I mean, and I try not to hate, but he is a horrible, horrible person. But for me, it's about so much more than that. It's about creating a vision, and that is what the Sanders campaign has done. And it's true. He has shown that you don't need to take corporate money. You can actually raise money from regular people. In fact, he has raised more money than almost everyone in the race. Actually,
I know he's doing so well.
At $18 a pop. Right? I mean, it's pretty incredible. But even more exciting to me is out of that Sanders 2016 campaign has come other infrastructure like Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, that's created an infrastructure for other people to run in the same way. So we're going to take, do the pledge to not take corporate PAC money, right? And so we're going to run on a platform of Medicare for All and the Green New Deal and $15 an hour minimum wage and free college, and all of these things that are going to change the world for the better. And now there's an infrastructure to support them that just did not exist before. And this is the key. It's like, if you care about the things that we're talking about, really support people that aren't taking the corporate PAC money, because in the end, they're going to be the ones that are answerable to you. This is the reason Cal Cunningham is not coming out for Medicare for All, because he's now taken the money from the establishment who doesn't support Medicare for All, because unfortunately they're all in the pockets of the big insurance companies and big pharma. Again, that legalized bribery piece that we talk about, which unfortunately is a bipartisan problem. It's just business as usual, in fact. People don't even think there's anything wrong with it. Again, legal, but not right. So, but the good thing is it really is changing, and I am feeling, you have the AOC, who's a rock star. I mean, here, AOC, who has been in Iowa as a surrogate for Bernie this last week, as Bernie's been stuck at the impeachment hearing, and she's been getting, thousands of people have come out to see her. She's a rock star in her own right.
But you don't hear
in Iowa,
yeah,
which is predominantly white.
and you don't hear about all the people that are coming out for Bernie.
No.
You know, and it just the news, the media is another big issue that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
This is why it's really important to support local media like WCOM,
Yeah.
but also the Young Turks, Rising, which is actually The Hill has this incredible show on YouTube called Rising, which really speaks the truth. There's other, YouTube shows that really do try and get at what's really happening, because you're right, the mainstream media is not doing what they need to be doing to inform the American people.
Yeah.
I mean, they were back in 2016. They had the cameras on the empty podium waiting for Trump, who was just spreading hate and division and lies. And meanwhile, they never showed the 18,000 people that were showing up for Bernie Sanders, who was giving an hour-and-a-half speech on policy. And yet people were like ecstatic about it, because people do care about policy. People want to see their better life, and they're doing the same now. I mean, they had a blackout on Bernie until now, because they can't, because he's leading in the polls now, and we're going into Iowa, and hopefully he will win there, and they're not going to be able to ignore him for much longer.
Yeah, and I was so disappointed in some of the other candidates where they kept dissing about Medicare for all, and I thought, what is their problem? Can't they see that so much money goes into these insurance companies? I'm old enough. I remember when I was 8 years old having my appendix out, and that was before insurance. And I think they worked out a payment plan or something. My parents, it was not that expensive, but they said, oh, there's this new insurance that's getting started, and it will help them when you have this, the doctors are getting together, and so it was very, very reasonable then. And, and so, but the more it's become another thing in and of itself, because the more they charge, the more the hospitals are charging. It's like they have this open source of money with insurance. And
Well, they're not coming out for it, and they're telling lies and spewing
Exactly.
industry talking points, because they're in the pockets of these people. I have been devastated that Joe Biden has been spreading industry lies
Yes.
about Medicare for all. I mean, I've done a ton of research into this. I know the truth about this. A single-payer system is the only thing that's going to cover all our people and control costs. I mean, last year, our healthcare was over $3.6 trillion. I mean, our healthcare is out of control. We're spending probably close to $11,000 per person on healthcare. And what are we getting for it? It's an insane way to do healthcare. And I have to say, this is my passion. So when I see Democratic candidates lying about it, like Pete Buttigieg, and putting forth pathetic, like programs like Medicare for all who want it, and the public option. The public option is what Democrats say when they want to sound like they're going to do something without actually doing anything. A public option doesn't attack the problem, which is the administrative waste and the profit in the system. It just adds yet another
layer.
Yeah, just another plan to this multi-payer system, and it doesn't do anything to control costs. And then the insurance companies are very smart in finding ways they'll take the most healthy patients, and they'll put all the sickest people into the public plan, and then the costs will balloon up, and they'll be like, see, this isn't sustainable. And it's the public option is a way to undermine. It used to be a better option when we were fighting, for the ACA and everything. But now it is not. We have to go full force for the whole thing, the improved Medicare for all, the single payer system, which just means there's one payer, and that is going to be the government agency, and that takes most hospitals now have just as many or more administrators than they do providers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Because
insane.
If you think about this, all this, how many insurance companies are there? Each one has how many plans, how many different kinds of plans for this, that, and the
Yep.
other. And so the people who have to, in the hospitals, the doctors, I feel it's really been hard on small doctors who have just,
Yeah.
a private practice. They have to hire somebody or maybe one or two, just to
Just
do
to
all
deal with that, just to do
deal with
pre-authorizations and deal with denials and all of this insanity that does nothing but
administrative junk,
administrative junk. That's pointless.
Yes, it's not taking care of people, and more of that is going into administration than into health care.
Absolutely, and it's not right, and that needs to be reinvested into actually taking care of people
Yeah.
when they need it.
And I'm trying to remember the name of that insurance guy who.
Wendell Potter.
Yes, and he was right in there doing that, and then they were having some kind of a free clinic, mobile clinic in Virginia, and he just thought, oh, I'll drive by just to kind of check. And
He saw people literally
horrified.
lined up, like mile long,
They'd
and
gone
he was
at
like,
2
"Wow."
or 3 in the morning lining up in
Yeah.
the cars. It was so sad. These people were obviously so poor, in such bad health,
Yep.
and they were getting dental care. And
People line up even longer for dental care because
Yeah.
dental care we have a dental crisis
we do.
in a huge way,
We do.
in this country, which is Medicare for All includes dental, which is how it should be. I don't understand how dental got separated from the rest of the body.
I don't-
It's really strange.
It affects all the
It affects It affects everything.
But he had
so.
an epiphany. It was.
He's one of my heroes, Wendell
Yeah.
Potter, because he was one of these people that was running focus groups and coming up with the messaging, and he exposed all of that and continues to, and speaking out against, in particular the candidates that are just repeating these lies about choice, about all this stuff, ripping away the Medicare Advantage plan. It's infuriating. Medicare Advantage, by the way, is privatizing Medicare. That is what we've done. They've been wanting to privatize Medicare for a long time. They did it, but under our noses. And that's what Medicare Advantage plans are. They're not great. We're actually paying out the nose for them, but just not directly. We're paying through taxes.
Yes. So the good fight is here.
Yes.
And this is the opportunity, one of the rare times when there's an opportunity to really make change. Really, the whole structural thing that is got over the years has gotten worse and worse.
Yes.
I think they dated back to the 70s when there was a lot of undoing of the New Deal.
Right.
And since then it's been downhill in terms of the average working person.
Absolutely.
And particularly for women.
Yes, or minorities,
or minorities.
Immigrants, or absolutely. It is. And I want to let's definitely focus on the positive.
Yes,
it is
okay.
such an exciting time. They're really. This is the closest progressives have ever been in my lifetime to really having someone in leadership that will lead a political revolution, a nonviolent political revolution, which is what we need.
Yeah.
We can make this change. I feel like we're at a crossroads, especially because of climate change, and we can continue to go down that same road, and it will be our destruction. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. Or we can actually choose the road less taken, which is all coming together, working towards a greater good, and really uplifting all of us, going for the big change. No, it's not going to be comfortable. One of my, Nina Turner, who was just here this weekend, who's one of the campaign co-chairs for Bernie Sanders, says that we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because we're going to have to face big structural changes in order to create the kind of world that we want. But in the end, it's going to be so worth it. And what's the alternative? The alternative is a wasteland, which is what it's going to be if we don't get serious about climate change. And we're going to have an economic collapse, because the way things are going now, it's not sustainable with all of the income concentrated at the top. It's not a sustainable model.
And the other thing I hope that the progressives will also emphasize, that while we need to be ready to defend our country, having bases, 800 or more bases all over the world, is not defending. It is aggressive in many places. They're
Imperialism.
not wanted, and it's not to not have any kind of a military, but to scale back. And so much of this is terrible for the climate. You know, all these fire burns that they do, and they leave someplace, and now they have sick military guys who are in the hospital because of inhaling all that smoke when they. So the whole thing they've been doing has been so counterproductive in terms
In
of
every way, besides just the, like, money that is just being wasted on continually killing people, which just makes people
not like us at all.
Not like us at all.
You're sending drones and killing people in our land.
This is where I think the biggest difference with Bernie Sanders is. I think his foreign policy is in a different universe than anybody else. He really wants to have a foreign policy based on diplomacy,
yes,
and based on ending the endless wars in a very real way, and bringing the entire world together to fight climate change. I mean, this is the vision that I want. There is a common enemy, and it is climate change, because no one's going to get out of it in the country, in the world. I mean, if the scientists are right, which I believe they are, and we're going to see worse and worse things like with the Australian fires.
Yeah, just thinking of Australia.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the head of Australia didn't believe in climate change, and he's got a country that's devastated.
That's devastated right now. Yeah, I mean, things are just going to get worse.
So the climate, and I wish people would get to know more about the Green New Deal, because we've had Kathy Kaufman on a couple of times, and people don't realize.
Proud PDOC member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And people don't realize that's a job
Yes.
producing program. That's more has to be spoken, not just say Green New Deal, but this will create a lot of well-paying jobs and will help the climate at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation, and how often do we get those? I agree. We should be jobs program,
Yes.
jobs program,
And I
all
think
day,
when
every
people
day.
hear that, I think that will strike a lot of hope in people's hearts.
And there's the just transition for people that are still working in fossil fuels. So
Yes.
those folks aren't left behind. Those folks
Yes.
aren't being blamed for working in, the fossil fuel industry. They're just trying to take care of their families too.
Sure.
They're going to be trained. They're going to get compensation and transitioned in a fair way, in a just way to these new technologies or whatever other kind of job they want to work.
And it'd be nice in the media to have them have some whole programs about, don't you want to know what the Green New Deal really is about? Let me tell you, that would be.
Yeah, except for on places like MSNBC, BP, and all of these sort of groups like advertise on them. This is why they don't talk about these things. And also, I will say this: it's very scary. People tend, the climate change in particular.
Yes.
Because it's like, it's almost overwhelming. It gives you, like Bernie always says, I don't want to scare you, but, right? But it is scary. And this is why I think that so many people have been hiding their head in the sand about it, because it's very overwhelming, but we're not going to be able to do that anymore, and we have to get serious about this. And no, it's not going to be comfortable, and yes, it's going to be very, very difficult. But guess what? I actually believe in America, and I think that we can do it. We used to be able to do big things. I think we can do big things again. And I just do not buy this, no we can't, that I hear from other candidates like Amy Klobuchar, that things are a pipe dream. Why is it a pipe dream to take care of our people?
Yeah.
It's not. We can do it. We've done it before.
If we could do these things from the 30s, have free education in many places. I know at least in New York and in California, there was free college education, really excellent college education. Yeah. If we could do these things in a depression time,
right?
Way back then, what are people saying we can't do it now? We just have
It's an investment in the future. That's how we have to do it. That's how we have to look at it. It's an investment. If we are investing in the young people, whoever is going to school, it doesn't have to just be young people, it could be non-traditional students, people going back to school. If we're investing in that, those are the leaders of tomorrow. Those are the people that are going to do the jobs of tomorrow and keep our society running. It's an investment, and I think it's a very worthy investment.
So, Rebecca Cerese, we are so glad you're here. Do you have an email or a website for Progressive Dems that we could tell people?
Yes, you can find us on Facebook at the Progressive Democrats of Orange County. You can see our really cool logo up there. And also find Healthcare for All Y'all. So Healthcare for All Y'all is, we have a website, which is healthcareforallyall.org, and that's spelling FOR, for. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter. And check us out. We have a lot of really great resources. Invite me to come give my presentation
Yes.
because I'm happy to do it.
Yes. And you have some videos that you can show too.
Yeah.
Do you have one on Healthcare for All Y'all?
Yeah, we have some videos up on Healthcare for All Y'all, and so. And my email is just you can find my email. I don't know if I should give it out over the air, but I will. It's R and my last name CERESE @gmail.com. Always looking for people that want to come into the Progressive Dems. We definitely don't have enough diversity, which I really want to change. This is why I've been really working hard to foster relationships with the NAACP and other groups, because we're all in this together, and we need the diversity is our strength. Diversity of voices is a positive. It is actually, I think, the only way we're going to create a sustainable future.
Rebecca Cerese, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.